Hello and welcome to the Bowling University studio from the International Bowling Campus in Arlington, Texas. This is the Profit Break. If you're joining us for the first time, we're glad you're here. Give us 15 minutes and you'll be well on your way to improving yourself and your profitability. On today's episode, we'll discuss the vital role a maintenance program plays in your game room. Entertainment centers can easily have upwards of 50 or more individual games, each game with its own set of lights, bells, whistles, and programming. And without a maintenance program in place to help manage a task of this size, you could very well not be providing the best guest experience, which probably means less income. Our guest today, Nick DiMatteo, is here to explain more about the importance and benefits of a game room maintenance program. You may remember Nick from a recent Bowl Expo presentation, but Nick is not just a first-timer with us. This is his first time on the Profit Break, though, but he's not new to the industry. Throughout his career, he has worked his way up the industry ladder in operations with some well-known companies, including Dave & Buster's. He's also the founder of 45 Games, which provides design and mentorship opportunities to amusement-related operations. Recently, Nick joined the Pinnacle Entertainment Group as Vice President of Operations and Business Development. Nick, thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the Profit Break.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about something that's near and dear to your heart. I guess I understand that's how you got your start in this business.
I did.
Okay, about maintenance. So let's start at the very basics. What is a preventative maintenance program?
So, preventive maintenance program is a totally underutilized program, and many people don't really understand how useful this is going to be. So, the program in itself is designed to identify issues before they become significantly more. And what that could be is something as basic as, say, like a motor for a game. So you have a game and there's a motor there. If that issue becomes something more significant, that cost could be more money, and then also the downtime for that could be substantial.
So a program itself, so can you give us some examples on, from what I'm understanding, if you've got a preventative maintenance program, the key word in there is preventative.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to do this before you're having issues. Mm-hmm. Okay, and why is that important as opposed to wait? Okay, well I'll just wait. It breaks, I'll fix it. Why is that important?
Well, I mean, my wife likes to do that with her car, so.
I feel your pain.
So I use cars as a pretty good example there. So you have a vehicle, and if you wait until the vehicle broke, it'd be really hard for you to do anything with that vehicle. And usually there's a maintenance program in place. You have to go and change the oil, you have to change the tires, you have to change your brakes, and you do those things so there's not substantial issues later on. Games are no different.
Mm-hmm. So what you could be saving up front by not having a maintenance program, you're probably going to, you can pay me now or pay me later, essentially.
Usually the rule of thumb is almost 4x. So by running a successful maintenance program, you're able to impact your business 4x. If you don't run that, wow. Just like a car engine, if you had a car engine fail, you never change the oil, that's a $30 oil change compared to a $300 motor.
Good point. I like it when you put numbers like that. So, all right. So the financial impact is you're going to save money on the back end because you're not, you're heading this stuff off before it happens. What does it take to do a preventative maintenance program? How many hours should I? If I'm a proprietor, I'm sitting there, I don't have a preventative maintenance program, how do I know what I need to do to effectively run a maintenance program? How many hours a week is it going to take me?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and get that question quite often. So depending on the size of the location, the kind of location you have, but for this example, let's just say you have roughly 50 games. So at 50 games, you could be looking at 10 hours. If you're looking at 80, 90 games, you're looking at roughly 20 hours. And that time, I'm going to sound like a broken record as I say this over and over again, it's well spent. That time is well spent. That money's well spent.
Okay. So I should not be afraid then, as somebody that has games. Okay, all our members are at different parts of the spectrum. I mean, some of them have FECs and they've got a fully developed program. Then we have a bunch that are just getting into it. They may not have a structured program. Mm-hmm. And then we have some that are thinking of getting into it. Okay, expanding their business, or they have games and they have a partner location. Okay, so and one of the first things that usually comes up is, well, I don't have anybody that can fix these things. Okay, so we're not talking that many hours a week, really, to do something like this, especially for 4 times return. Okay, any specific games you can give us an example of, so I can see in my own mind's eye, what are you talking about? What am I gonna fix with this?
Yeah, there's probably a couple that are a good example, and the first one I like to use is. Like a pusher. So one of the most popular games right now is pusher games. So if you have a pusher game and that motor fails, what's going to happen is that game is just going to be down. And it'll be down until those parts are ordered, assuming those parts are actually in stock. There's another way of looking at it too. Instead of it going down, the idea is to try to catch it before it breaks. So as you touched on earlier, the preventative parts. So if you have a motor, and some of the older motors, you're able to actually service the motors. You're able to change brushes, and you're able to do things to the motor. And in those cases, very much like changing oil in a vehicle, once you change those components out or change those parts, you're able to extend the lifespan of that unit. So those bushings could be like $100 compared to replacing the entire motor is $1,200. Significant difference.
So you do have to maintain a little bit of a backstock of supplies that you might need to keep things going. Okay. You know, another question that we get asked a lot is okay, you know, first, like we said, how many hours do I need to do it? Who do I get to do it? And oftentimes what we find in our industry is most locations will have that, you know, mechanic that's there on site that might be taking care of the facility or just the pin setters, and the inclination is I'll just have this person take care of the games too. If you've got a larger FEC, you know, 50 games or more, is that always the wise choice, or should I be looking to develop somebody else so that this guy can do what he does normally, his day job?
I'm finding more and more of that as I go through the bowling world. And it's another fantastic question. I'm an efficiency fan, so whenever I can, I try to spend as little as possible. I'm very thoughtful about spend. However, spend practically applied usually makes the most sense. So if you have the ability to develop somebody on your team and get them to a place where they're able to make that impact, it's definitely well worth your time to do that. Now, usually that bowling person is going to have a number of other duties within that location, and you don't want to put that person in a position where they're trying to decide what makes the most sense. And usually those loyalties lie in the bowling side because they understand how those things work.
Yep. Well, and sometimes those guys or gals they're more mechanically oriented, especially if there's an older center. You know, the pin setters or pin spotters are more mechanically oriented, where these things are electronic. So sometimes it's a different mindset. How would you, if you're bringing somebody on? I mean, how do you, when you decide the right person to do this? I mean, what kind of person do I need? Do I need somebody that's an ace already? Do I have somebody that I can bring in and kind of mentor and bring them up? Because help's hard to find. Good help's hard to find.
It is.
And let's face it, most of our locations are, you know, they're one off or two off, and some of the better, more talented techs are going to go to those chains where they might find more of an opportunity. So we're kind of starting from the square one here and trying to find people.
So what I usually find team-wise is usually the person who's leading the team in the amusement sector is usually going to have some level of decent soft skills. And there's some level of technical acumen as well, especially when it comes to electronics. Usually their right-hand person is someone who is like super dialed into the electronic side and maybe has less interest in dealing with people. You really want neither of them to be the person that runs this program because they already have a preset role and responsibilities that are very important within your location. However, there's usually somebody on that team that what I'll call is the like up-and-comer person. So that's someone who wants to do more, has a flexible schedule, usually makes under $20 an hour, and that person is just hungry and enjoys just being in that environment with those two other people. That's the person you would typically identify.
Well, and you know what? I mean, there's a lot of people that love playing games. So I mean, to be able to do that and get paid for it, because part of the preventative maintenance is you got to play the games, right? Okay, so which I never had a problem finding somebody to test the games. Okay, so. Now, and it sounds to me too like in the bowling industry, you know, you have a much smaller amount of pin setters, generally speaking, you know, 32 or 40, and it was a cardinal sin to leave a pin setter down. You don't go home until that pin setter is working. So obviously that means having the right supplies so that you can get it fixed. Should we kind of think like that when it comes to games too?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I often say down games make zero rev. So if you have something not functional, it's not making any money. And usually when people are just starting in the industry, the easiest analogy I use is every game is like a store. And when that store is down, it makes no money. So think of it as like your corner store or something else that you're familiar with in your neighborhood. As soon as that unit is not open, it's closed for business.
Okay. So we got to start thinking the same way with games too. What advice would you have? One of the common questions we get is there are some members that they don't own their own games. And you know, they see the potential gain by owning the games themselves, but a fear is, I don't know how to fix these things. Okay, how should they, if they do want to make that transition, how should they consider about going and making that transition to, you know, being comfortable getting the game, fixing the games themselves and owning the games. Is that a major move to do something like that? Or?
It is, and there really is a home for third-party support. So if you have a vendor and they're a great vendor, they're typically doing a fantastic service to you. They have a level of acumen that's really high, and they typically, you're going to have one of the better ones. They're really motivated to have great stuff in that location and keep it running. Mm-hmm. So if you're launching a new business or you're unsure of what to do, I think they have a fantastic place in the business. And to kind of answer your question, I think long term you'll find that some of them are more open to transition throughout your relationship. So as you get a handle on your business and as they might have somebody locally that could transition into working directly for you, there is an opportunity there to make that adjustment over time.
Okay, good advice. We have time for one more question. There's obvious benefits to a preventative maintenance program. Are there any, hidden Mickeys, any hidden benefits to having a preventative maintenance program that we may not be thinking about?
This is, I'll say this is something I infrequently share, and I'll share for you guys today. The biggest question I have is, Nick, do you know somebody? I'm looking for a person. I'm looking for somebody to help with repair. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I'm able to help. The best thing you could do is have this program, and this program kind of creates that next person for you. So we used the example earlier. You have your manager person, you have their right-hand supervisor person who's very technical. Then you have this person, say, again, under $20 an hour that is working on preventative maintenance for you 10 to 20 hours a week, depending on the size of your location. What that does when somebody has to work on those games for that amount of time, it allows them to have a certain level of insight into how boards are structured, how the games are built, and then ultimately, if there's repair that happens in that same window, you can order the parts and give it to that person to install. And what that does is it creates like a baby version of your master tech. So the best thing you could do for a minimal investment is to have this person do these set of tasks, and that kind of you're almost like self-replicating your structure at that point. So if we use $20 as an example and 10 hours a week, well, hey, for roughly $10,000 a year or under, you can start to develop your next repair person. So if that person that you have retires or they leave, whatever, you already have somebody in the chute to be able to come in and make an impact.
Pipeline going, yeah. Good advice. Okay, good advice. You know what? I think we're just scratching the surface on this, and hopefully you'll come back with us again as we dig into this some more, because it is something in our industry that is just getting more and more attention on how do we maintain these things and keep it up to the level that we need to get the great guest experience. So thank you for your time and your expertise and your experience.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks again. All right, you know what? If you'd like to learn more about maintenance programs for your game room, feel free to reach out to Nick directly. If you are ready to start improving your center's profitability, you can reach us anytime at education@bpaa.com. As we wrap up another edition of the Profit Break, remember that when your focus is on growing people, people will grow your business. This episode, as well as all our previous Profit Break episodes, are available 24/7 for you and your team at bowlinuniversity.net. Plus, new episodes are available every month, so mark your calendar, watch your email, and join us on Facebook to hear about the latest episodes. Until then, I'm John Karabatsos, and do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. We'll see you next time. So long.